very serendipitous that it happened that way, and I'm glad it did because I'm able to focus now on what I want to do instead of them distracting me from what I want to do because I'm too busy fighting them. You know, so no, if music is in your heart, if you love what you do and you have that gift and you know it's a gift from God.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today on the Shield of Hope podcast, Hope Speaks on the Shield of Hope channel. Thank you guys. It's been an honor and a blessing over the last year. We've been doing a lot of these podcasts, and really, musicians are one of my favorite people to have on this podcast by far. They get entertaining stories, but this artist, I really want to know how you circle the drum. Okay, so down in Pittsburgh where we were just at, how did you learn? I can't even twirl a lightsaber. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so twirling a lightsaber is pretty hard. How do you twirl it with your drumstick, in your hand, and still beat the drums at the same time?
Well, this was I learned this back in the day when MTV actually played music. when MTV actually stood for music television, not musty television, I guess. So. It was a lot of that. I just learned how to. I just saw drummers doing that, like Tommy Lee. He was big on that. A lot of the hair 80s metal, twirling the drumsticks. So I always thought that was cool. I wasn't the cool kid in school, so I figured I would have a one up on everybody if I could learn how to twirl the. And so. But then it went on from there where it's like, well, yeah, that's cool, and talking with my dad, he's like, well, it's great if you want to enjoy this, So I took that as, well, if I can twirl the sticks, I still have to make it musical.
Yeah.
There still has to be a groove in there. There still has to be, time. And so when I do stuff like that, I make sure, I make sure that that I'm still playing music while I'm doing that. I think it makes it a little bit more impressive.
How long did that take you to master, though? Is that something that's taken actually years, or is that only a few months, or maybe even a week?
It's one of those things where you come up with ideas, and I've come up with different ideas over the years to be able to play different things. So it doesn't really take me long. When I first learned how to do it, I can't tell you how long it took me because again, I was in like third or fourth grade when I was trying it out. So, but if I come up with an idea and I hear something and I can see myself twirling the sticks to a particular groove, it'll take me a little while to get it, to get it where it's nice and smooth, because first I'll work on like the technique of it, make sure it actually works out, if it doesn't, I might change it up and do like a little variation of something where it will work for me. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it all depends on what you're doing. It can take a day, it can take a week, it can take a month. It depends on what you're doing with it.
Yeah. Well, for the audience wondering, I did not introduce your name, which you are Chuck Peterson, by the way, drummer and musician. Chuck, is there any? First of all, I'm going to have you introduce yourself to the audience and your background just a little bit. But I guess the first question for me, and you can even include this in your background information, were you always a drummer, or do you play different instruments as well, or have you never given them a try?
Well, okay, I'll start off with the introduction. I'm Chuck Peterson. I've been playing drums for amount of years. Probably, if I really count and think about this year, I'm going to say I'm going on like this year, probably going on 39 years of playing drums. And I played in the school band. That's how I got my start, My dad, he is the drummer for Sugar Hill Gang. So I learned about a lot of different music from him growing up. learning how to play different styles of music and listening to them and enjoying them and all that stuff. So Led Zeppelin was being played in the house. Miles Davis was being played in the house. Motown, Johnny Cash, whatever. So my musical range is all over the place, and I've always played drums. I did try to learn different instruments. I tried playing guitar. I tried to learn how to play guitar, and I have short, fat fingers, so it didn't really work out well for me because once I got to the F chord, I realized why they call it the F chord. So it's like, well, okay, that was that. But I did take piano for a little bit when I was in college, and that was very helpful. And actually, at that point, I had stopped playing drums. I was just playing piano because I was just so interested in learning different chords and whatnot. But then I lost interest in piano when I heard somebody else come in the studio and play over a piano track that I recorded. And I was like, yeah, piano's not my thing. I should have kept up with it, for writing purposes, but that love for drums just came back, and I started playing differently when I went back to the drums because I learned how to play piano. I learned how to play musically. By the time I got back to the drums, it taught me how to play musically instead of just hitting things and trying to solo all over the place and whatnot. When the singer's trying to sing, no, it helped me to see the drum set as piano, that each part has its own musical entity. It's one big drum kit, but each drum, each cymbal has its own sound. It's its own instrument. So I try to treat it as such. So that's pretty much a quick. There's more to my background, but that's like the short version.
Well, we'll get into all that coming up here eventually. And one of those things I guess I was going to ask you, which you kind of answered on already, because coming from a directorial side, directing and working with the camera, I know like when you go to film school, they have you learn how to act, because then as a director, it influences you, like how to direct your actors. If you're used to acting, even though it's not going to be your main thing. So I didn't know, again, but you answered it almost, about how did piano, for playing it for a little bit, actually help you in your drums, and you answered yes. So that was a really good answer to that. Now you talked about your dad and being an influence. Where did he get started, I guess? And like, how big of an impact did you think that you were going to take after him when you were growing up, or did you think you were going to follow in that musical career?
Yeah, I did. I was my dad, of course, he got started because of the Beatles. He saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, just like many other well-known drummers. They saw Ringo on the Ed Sullivan. They're like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to play drums. And you had cats like Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa who had this amazing technique. But then Ringo, he's got amazing technique also. But Ringo was a groove drummer. He was a field drummer, and he made it attainable for any kid who wanted to play music to be able to do so because of his simplicity. But his feel was just tremendous. He had great metronomic timing, and which is what a lot of these drummers that came before me, that's what they relied on. They relied on the feel, the groove, the swing, time. And they did this all without a click. And so that's pretty much how my dad got started. And yeah, for me, there was music all over the house. His drums were all over the house. I remember him bringing his drum set up from the basement and setting it up in the living room and putting on a record. And the record was high up enough to where I couldn't reach it because I was obsessed with records, still am to this day. But also, so when he was playing, the record wouldn't skip, and he'd put it on the loudspeaker, and he'd play along to those records. And so I vividly remember doing that. But I think I caught the bug when he had picked my mom and I up in the middle of the night, like 12 in the morning. I was 3 or 4 years old. And I think he had a gig in New York City. And so it probably was from Sugar Hill. He probably had to do something with Sugar Hill, New York. And so I remember we got to the Holiday Inn, and I remember the next morning I see his drums all spread out. I think he was changing the drum heads. And so I see the drums all spread out, and that for me did it. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to play. And so we had to stop at the music store, and I asked him to buy me a drum set. And he's like, well, he says, I already have mine, and we can't fit it in the car. So he bought me a guitar instead, just to at least get me started. And God bless my mother, she let me take it to church and play along with the worship team, even though I had no idea what I was doing. And so when the worship team played, I'd start playing the guitar. And then when they stopped, I kept playing the guitar. And my mom, she's like, okay, Chuck, you can stop now. I probably embarrassed the heck out of my mom, But I had that guitar until I was like 15, 16, 17 years old. It just like fell apart. I knew nothing about it. I didn't really care about the guitar. It was just there, as I got older, because I was so much into the drums. And I sold it to a guy. Even though it was broken down, he gave me $100 for it, and he wanted to hire me for some sessions, but unfortunately, he passed away before any of that stuff could happen. I was 17 years old, so it didn't quite work out that way, unfortunately. But so yeah, over time, I just wound up getting a drum set, and I got a drum set for Christmas when I was 10 years old. The pastor's son, he sold it to me. I sold it to my parents to give to me for Christmas, and that was it.
For now, over time, I'm assuming that, like, because there's stages when I go through my day with music, like one day I could wake up, want to listen to country, one day I want to wake up, listen to rap. Do you have a set genre that you like to play to, or do you has there been a progression of your life? Has it always been like pop and rock or rock and roll? What has always been your favorite genre to play or listen to?
Well, there's two types of music. There's good music and bad music. So I like good music. It doesn't matter what style or what this thing called genre is, because as long as it feels good, it's got soul. It doesn't matter what style it is. So I get inspired by, one minute I can be inspired by James Brown, and the next song that'll pop on, I'll get inspired by Slipknot. So, and then after that, I'll get inspired by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, or I'll get inspired by Thundercat, so it's, so my range of listening eclectically is huge. Like, I'll listen to stuff, I'll listen to, Indian music, I'll listen to Central Java Gamelan, I'll listen to, the Turkish form of worship called the world. I don't remember the name, but the worshipers are like the Mevlevis, or the whirling dervishes is what it's called. David Hikes, who mixed Gregorian chants with Tobin throat. I said that. Sometimes I get my words mixed. Tobin throat singing. Thank you. He mixed those two styles together, and that's called the harmonic choir. So I'll listen to stuff like that. I'll listen to classical. So my musical taste does not range what's here in the United States or what's over in England and all that stuff. It goes further east, and so I think it's important to listen to all styles of music, because it gives you a sense of gives you a sense of wanting to learn about other people's cultures instead of being confined to what you know and not branching yourself out. And especially if you're a musician, um, it can make for interesting songwriting. And I can play different things on the drums. Like I played for a Christian pop punk band, and I remember they had this one song, and I threw in it. It was like very fast punk. It really was, And just right in the middle, I decided to throw one drop reggae in there, and it worked, and they loved it. So it's things like that. I love to create, So I think listening to all different types of music from, from the different bands that you may like and never heard of to more like cultural stuff that you never hear on the radio, that you never would hear on the radio. I think that's important, because it'll help you to branch out and be a little bit more creative in your music.
Now, I do this a lot on YouTube because I try to look up to people that like I kind of want to be. So like in essence, when I go on YouTube, I look up like short films or independent films and try to get like a feel for things that aren't mainstream. And when you're talking a lot about like finding all these different cultural musics and all these different groups and genres, like how does somebody like you go about finding these songs and these cultures? And like, is that something that you have to like just randomly type in like a playlist that's like shows up on Spotify? Is it like a YouTube thing? Is it just like I like, because even for me, like looking through YouTube, sometimes if I'm in the mood for horror, I'll be like, okay, I just want a horror short film that like somebody created that like I haven't seen before, something new online, a short film that independent artists like myself are doing. But like, how do you search for this stuff, or like?
Luckily, the one thing I will say that was good about college, because I really hated it, was I took a world music class, and that pretty much was my introduction to start listening, because we had learned about all these different types of music that I had just told you about, the central Java gamelan, the two-bit throat singing. I want to make sure I said that right. All that, the whirling dervishes, all that stuff we learned in our music class, and it just resonated, and because of that, it made me search out, different things at that time. So, and then before I took that class, I'm a huge Beatles fan. And so Abbey Road, was my favorite record. Still is to this day. It's one of my favorite Beatles albums. And then it wasn't until that class where I went back and paid attention to the Sgt. Pepper album and how many different types of music is on that one album, and the same thing with Fishbone. Give a monkey a brain and he'll swear he's the center of the universe. That's it's not much a cultural album, but it's got all different types of music in there. It's got funk, it's got rock, it's got R&B, it's got punk. So all on one album. So that's another one of my favorites, because it's so, each song is so different from the other. And for me, with Sgt. Pepper, it was kind of the same thing. And so that's pretty much how I discovered it. Again through my world music class, and been loving it ever since. Every once in a blue moon, I was like, I need to listen to something different. I need to listen to something I don't normally listen to every day, and I'll just, I'll pop something on, and just sit and listen. So.
Now, we talked, obviously the first segment here was talking about how you grew up in the music and what inspired you, but can you take us back to that first time you actually performed on a stage or at an event?
So if you want to talk about my very first performance, okay, was actually at a school concert. And so I remember we had just moved and we went to the office and they said, oh, do you want to join any school activities? I was in second grade. And the first thing I said was, I want to join the school band. And she said, oh, I'm sorry, you can't join the school band until you're in third grade. And she goes, would you like to join anything else? And I said, no, I'll wait. I didn't want to join anything else. I wanted to be in the school band. So when I got to third grade, we were doing the concert. So that pretty much was my first performance. But our teacher, Mrs. Giovanna, I believe her name was. I don't remember. She made the third graders play a song by themselves. And so we had to play Puff the Magic Dragon, which, again, I'm the kid who's already been exposed to Miles Davis, to Weather Report, to Mahavishnu Orchestra, So Peter Paul and Barry wasn't at the top of my list, right? So we had to play Puff the Magic Dragon, but we had to play it at like a super slow speed. So it was like, dun, 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 dun. It was the longest, most embarrassing moment of my life, And what made it even worse was my mom running up with her camera, and I can see her, like taking a picture, and so that pretty much was my first performance on stage. But then after that, I pretty much played in church, So, I grew up in the church and I was playing drums in the church. I started off with percussion. And then we went to another church, which I'm still friends with the pastor and the worship leader at that particular church, Joe Pascovich. If he's watching, how you doing, Pastor Joe? And so I played on the worship team there. And so I guess because I've done it my whole life, I really can't recall like my very first performance. Probably outside of church performance was probably a band that I was involved with called we were very experimental, a very experimental band who would have people show up to the show and leave in the middle of the show to go get ice cream and all that stuff. But we loved what we were doing. So that pretty much was my first taste. And then my first professional taste was playing with Jamie Brennan and the Electric Soul. We got to open for Blue Oyster Cult. Got to open for my dad's band Tackhead, which those were Tackhead. They were the house band for Sugar Hill. They kind of left that scene and started up another one. And Tackhead, they inspired bands like Ministry. They inspired bands like Primus, Red Hot Chili Peppers. My dad told me he would see those guys, Primus, Red Hot Chili Peppers, again, Ministry, Nine Inch Nails. He'd seen them all in the front row of their shows. And so because they were one of those underground bands who was very influential among those musicians, And so we got to open for them, and we made sure we brought our A game, because like we had a lot of people watching. There were people, they were waiting for the Tackhead reunion, and people flew in from Australia to come and see the show. They flew from Australia to Connecticut to come and dig this show, and then we're opening for them. So it's like we best make sure that, we come prepared, we come with our A game. So those are pretty much, firsts for me. They came in stages. So
one of the most interesting things you just said is opening up for your dad. Was that always a dream kind of growing up that, hey, I would like to open up for him one day or play alongside him? Did you ever play with him on either a song, an album, or in the same band? Or was it always like you guys, because you were both drummers, correct?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
is there typical bands like this is a serious question. Is there ever two drummers in a band or does it only consist of one? I don't know if can you mix two drummers in a
Yeah, the Doobie Brothers, they do it all the time. Allman Brothers Band, they're another one. I'm sure there are plenty more, but those are the most known ones that everybody would know. Yeah.
But it's a rare thing though, right? Probably.
It is a rare thing. Sometimes when session drummers, when they go on and they do a studio date, sometimes they will use two drummers. Oh, Funk Brothers, Motown. They had two drummers on a lot of the songs. I mean, there's technically three drummers, but two will play at a time. And so a lot of those classic Motown hits, you would hear two drummers play. So it's not an uncommon thing, but it's not a common thing at the same time. And as far as my dad and I doing something together, we did a session together with I forgot who the artist was for, but we got a call from the late great Harold Sargent. Harold Sargent was a dear friend of my dad. He actually gave my dad his first shot at Wood, Brass, and Steel, which then turned into the Sugar Hill House Band. And he's helped. Harold has helped guys like Bootsy Collins before Bootsy joined James Brown. He helped him buy a bass. He's even helped me out. And the name Thaddeus Black is kind of like a tribute to Harold. And there's the whole story behind that. But Harold was just one of those guys who loved music, and he gave himself to the music and would help others to achieve their dream. And if you watch the Matrix movie, the first one, Harold's drum groove is in that movie for the skull snaps, and that's the scene where Morpheus, he takes Neo, through the Matrix, and Neo sees that woman with the red dress and turned out to be an agent. So that groove that's being played there, that was Harold. That was Harold's drumming.
That's awesome.
So yeah, Harold, he called my dad to come down to do a session, and then my dad called me and says, "Hey, we're going to do a session for Harold." He's like, "Come and pick me up." Right? So I went and I got him, and I played on one song, and the cool thing was somehow the tracks were being bounced to the floor in real time. So we were getting clicks from the engineers in Florida, and they were bringing it back up to Hartford, Connecticut, where we were, and we would hear the clicks and play along to those clicks and those tracks. So I did one song, and then my dad got up and did the other one. So nothing really ever came of that, but it was a really cool moment for us to do a session together like that.
Oh, I bet. And I think about it, and I don't know if you watch baseball, but I can relate to Ken Griffey and his son, Ken Griffey Jr. I think it'd be pretty cool to play alongside with your parent, especially in the same profession. And I believe they hit back-to-back home runs in the same game. So if I'm relating my baseball correctly, but I do want to get, because since you referenced the Adventures of Thaddeus Black, I want to ask you a little bit about what that is and how that got started.
So Thaddeus Black, The Adventures of Thaddeus Black, was actually supposed to be an album title, and I was kind of like trying to digress away from that, because I would love for you to interview the whole band.
Oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
So Oh, okay. I was gonna say I can switch this topic by saying about just basically creating your own music and the process of creating your own music, if that helps instead.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, so like again, I'll give like a small background, but I won't get into details. But that was originally supposed to be an album title, and this is when I was in a band with Jamie Brennan and Electric Soul, but that album never happened. So I just kind of took that name and used it in the band, right? Because it's a cool name. So,
it is. It's a very cool name.
So yeah, Jamie was like, "Yeah, go ahead, use it." So I did. And this is actually the second incarnation of this band. There was a Thaddeus Black before that, but that group we didn't last too long. We were together for like 2 years maybe, but we only did like 2 or 3 shows. And so I just said, well, let me take this name and use it again. And the writing process for us is we all had a hand in it. We already when we started, we had already Doug and Purcell, the guitar player and the singer, they had a few songs already from another band that they're in called the Crystal Blue Project, and so we just kind of took those songs and made it our own. We rearranged them, and then the bass player Lawrence, he wrote a couple of tunes, and we worked on that. I wrote a tune, and we had worked on that, and that's pretty much the album. We're going to do one cover. We're not going to reveal what the cover is yet. But yeah, there's one tune that Lawrence had, the bass player, where he had it for another artist because we all play with other musicians outside of this, doing sessions, tours, all that stuff. So he had the song for another artist and she didn't want it. So Lawrence was like, "Here, take this. If you guys want it, we can work on it. It could be our own." And so I was like, "I love this." I said, whoever that girl was, she's missing out because this is a really, really great tune. So we took it, we recorded it. I got Corey Glover to lend his vocal expertise on this song, so he's gonna be on that too. And if you don't know who Corey Glover is, he's the lead singer of the band Living Color, and monster singer, great human being. So he sang on that song. My dad is actually mixing it, and then once we get it mastered, that's going to be our first single.
Very nice. Now I would look forward to listening to it. I really do. With this, because you keep mentioning names upon names upon names, and people I don't know, people I do know. Does the music industry, and I'm assuming maybe the farther I get into the film industry, it'll be the same thing. But does the world become a smaller place? Like, when you hear people's names, like, do you like, oh, I already knew them, like, because of this person, like, is it something like, we all meet new people, obviously, but like, is there like upcoming artists or like, especially like independent musicians, drummers, even that like you already know kind of ahead of time?
It's funny. My friends, they know about it before I do. I'm kind of an old head. I like the old school stuff, but I'll stumble upon somebody on Facebook. I'll go and I'll listen to somebody. I'm like, okay, I think their stuff. Thundercat was one of the names I mentioned. A friend of mine, he had posted one of his songs on Facebook, and so I listened to it, and I was like, oh man, this guy's happening. So I became a huge fan. When it comes to meeting people, I believe that the music industry that it expands. Who you meet. It doesn't get smaller; it gets bigger. Because I'll tell you this, I'm kind of very shy. I'm very socially awkward sometimes. So if it wasn't for music, I don't think I would know the amount of people that I do know. Which has all been a blessing. I wouldn't have been able to do the things I can do if it wasn't for the music. I wouldn't have traveled to places I wanted to travel to. There's still a lot of places I want to travel to. I've never been to Europe yet, unfortunately. But came close once, but everything fell through. So I believe it expands. Your friendships, they expand, and even going to the NAMM show in California, a lot of the people that I met there, who are well-known musicians who played on famous artists, record and all that stuff. They do sessions and all that stuff. We have a friendship. I'll be like, hey man, how you doing? That kind of thing. So it's nice to have that because they are regular people. They don't really go for them. Oh my gosh! Even though I'm doing that inside when I first meet them. But I play it cool because I know they're just human. They don't want. I'm sure they don't like people freaking out on them. But again, inside I'm freaking like, holy crap! I've listened to this guy for many years, and I'm finally getting to shake hands with them, and hang with them, and all that stuff. So.
Is there a particular person that you reference that to, like like your heart's beating on the inside, like you're really excited to meet them?
Yeah, man, there are many. I'll make a few mentions. My friend Dennis Hall. He played in a Christian band called AD back in the day. He's worked with Phil Keggy. He's worked with Sheila E. And he actually, I texted him while we were in Pittsburgh. I texted him, and he was telling me about some pretty cool gigs he's got coming up. I'm not going to say who they are because I don't know. It's news yet, so keep that on the deal. So, Dennis, how you doing, buddy?
Are you saying you don't want to break news on my channel? No. That would go viral. No, but
some serious trouble. Another guy is Tristan Bowden, who is he's Kenny Loggins' drummer, and he's played on all of Kenny Loggins' hits, stuff that you heard in the movie. That was Tristan on drums, and he wound up playing for Chicago for about 20-something years, and now he's back with Kenny. So he's another one where we've talked a lot. We was when I go to California and I see him, like, hey, what's going on, and he wanted to take me around to see LA, because I was staying out there for 2 weeks one year, but he had a trip, the Chicago tour right after the NAMM show. He's like, man, he goes, if I didn't have the tour, he goes, I'd show you around, I'd show you some of the best spots, So Tris is a dear friend. We don't talk often because he's so busy, but when we do, it's nice to catch up. He's one of those guys. Very nice.
Well, I got one final question here for you, Chuck, before we wrap this thing up. For anybody, and I want to end on an inspirational note to any upcoming musician or artist or anybody in any career. What is something that you consider to be motivational that you kind of strive for? Is there a quote that you go by? Is there anything like that you can say to influence somebody right now about continuing on with their career and pushing through the hard times, no matter what field they're in?
Yeah. There have been a lot of failures, I have to say, and I have had a lot of haters who hated the fact of hated the fact of trying to be a musician for a living, and they didn't like it at all, and I would get a tongue lashing from them because of it, and so I at first used that as my motivation, to prove them wrong. But those people are no longer a part of my life anymore. I had to, they got rid of me as much as I got rid of them. Let's just say that, so it was very, very serendipitous that it happened that way. And I'm glad it did because I'm able to focus now on what I want to do instead of them distracting me from what I want to do because I'm too busy fighting them. You know, so no, if music is in your heart, if you love what you do and you have that gift and you know it's a gift from God and you stay humble, you stay cool, just be a nice person, be on time. If you get material, always come over prepared. I'd rather be over prepared than under. And don't let anybody deter you from wanting to pursue your passion, no matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're a musician or like you getting into film or anybody there are some people who just, they just want to be a good parent or a good husband and a good mother and a good wife. So, don't give up, just keep going, find that inner strength. And again, don't let anybody tell you what you can't do, if they do, then just say, well, you'll see, I'm just going to keep doing my thing, and again, just stay humble. And, there's one more thing I was going to say. I forgot what it was. Again, just be nice. If you're in it for, because you want to be a rock star, you want to, then you might want to reevaluate why you're doing this, because the music business is not for the faint of heart. As I'm quoting Troy Oliver, who's a baseball friend of mine, and it's not for the faint of heart. So you have to really, really love what you're doing to pursue it. You're gonna lose friends. You're gonna lose girlfriends or boyfriends because they don't understand. But you gotta keep going with it because that's your passion.
Chuck Peterson, everybody. Chuck, where can they find you on social media?
On social media, you can find me on Facebook at Chuck Peterson Drums. You can find me there. You can find me on my regular page, which is Chuck Peterson. I have my profile pictures with sunglasses on and I'm playing drums. If you want to check out my Instagram is Chuck P Drums. And for Thaddeus Black, if you want to dig on that stuff, our Facebook is The Adventures of Thaddeus Black, and on Instagram we are, I think it's Thaddeus Black Band. I think that's our Instagram, and we're putting up a new website soon, so we just got to work out the details on that. And once we do, you'll see it go up, and it'll be good. And yeah, we're finishing up our record. We're trying to finish up our records. Finish up the basic tracks at least. At least all my drums are done. I'm happy about that. We're just getting everything else going, and once the single's about to release, you will definitely know.
Awesome. And for everybody watching, if you're interested, I will also link them in the description below on this video. Thank you, Chuck, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks for having me, man. This is a lot of fun.
We'll have you and your band on here in the future.